The conclusion of the top 15 player rankings for the Louisville Cardinals ahead of the 2024 college football season ends with the top three. Three players that the Cardinals will rely upon heavily if they want to achieve massive levels of success in 2024. All that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Louisville.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on, everyone? Happy Friday. Welcome in to another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I want to take this time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As August winds down, the sports have stopped sporting like we want them to, but continuing through the summer, FanDuel has been hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day. All summer long, visit FanDuel.com to get started. And then there were three. The final installment of the 5-part player rankings for the Louisville Cardinals ahead of the 2024 college football series. Numbers 3 through 1. We'll discuss an anchor on the offensive line, the best cornerback in the ACC, and one of the best defensive players in the country returning for Jeff Brom's squad. This was not an easy series. I mentioned over and over that I had to sort of switch things around. Like, I had my initial list of 15, and then I switched it, and then I made some tweaks, and then I made some more changes, and then finally I got to the point where I was comfortable with this top 15, and I appreciate everyone for joining me on this journey. It's been nice to see where the disagreements lie, where the common similarities are in opinion. But let's get into numbers 3 through 1. We begin with number 3, an anchor on the offensive line. This is a guy that has played a ton of ACC football, and he's played it very well in different positions. Number 3 is Michael Gonzalez. The 6'4", 305-pound veteran is returning for another season. I believe this is going to be his last season with the program. It is. He played in all 13 games in 2021, had a start. 2022, he took the next step forward, had 5 starts, and then 2023, he started all 13 games at left guard for an offense that liked to set the tone at the line of scrimmage. A lot of that can be contributed to Brian Hudson under center. You had Willie Tyler, the Rutgers transfer, manning down the fort at left tackle. Some other players along the line as well. But Michael Gonzalez played a key role for Richard Owens' offensive line from the interior. The frame that he has, 6'4", combined with the length and the strength, makes him really good in pass pro and also exceptional in run blocking. Top 3 on this list, he is preseason All-ACC. He is one of the 2 Cardinals to earn that honor before the season. The other one is a guy that is also on this list. I don't want to spoil who that is, but unless you've been living under a rock, you understand who that's going to be. He also is on the Outland Trophy watch list, which is for the best offensive lineman in the country. So I understand that these preseason accolades, let me rephrase, the Outland Trophies for the best interior lineman. I do think that it is important to make that correction. But I don't like to put too much emphasis on preseason watch lists or award lists or conference lists because they sort of skew the rankings. Now, it is true that chances are if they're on a respective list, they're probably on this top 15 as well, but not always the case. It was tough getting into numbers 3 through 6, right? Why is Gonzalez at 3 and not lower down this list? Well, number 1, he has multiple seasons of really good production at the ACC level. 13 games started last season at left guard. He had 31 knockdown blocks. 6'4", 305 pounds. Like I mentioned, doesn't really have too much of a weakness outside of like finishing blocks in the second level of the defense. I won't go as far as saying, there are plays that he takes off, but just continuing the blocks would be my only critique. And I'm not necessarily, an expert on offensive line play, but doesn't really have a glaring weakness. The frame, the length, the strength, the use of his hands, solid footwork. Not only does he excel in run blocking, but he's really good in pass pro as well. Not to mention, he has experience at both guard and tackle. In 2022, he spent time between left tackle and left guard, can play the entire side of the left part of the offensive line. And that's something that you can't overstate how important it is, because Monroe Mills is really good. He's top 6 on this list. He's going to have a really good season for Jeff Brom's team. Knock on wood, Lord forbid the Cardinals deal with injury issues at left tackle. I am confident that Gonzalez could slide over and protect Tyler Shuck's blindside and do it at a pretty high level. So you've got the production that he's had. He's going to have that same impact that he did last year. He's a penciled-in starter. He's one of the best interior offensive linemen in the ACC and also potentially the country as a whole, and the impact that he's going to have on this offensive line, being that veteran presence for a team that lost Willie Tyler. You lost a multiple-year starter at center in Brian Hudson. You lost some other players on that line as well. Now, there are some veterans that joined the team by ways of the transfer portal, but a guy who's been there and done that and has been extremely, I will say, exceptional at the ACC level, Michael Gonzalez lands at number 3 here. The reason why he's not higher up on this list is because the other two are arguably the best at their position in the conference and 2 of the best at their position nationwide. And it'll make sense because, again, unless you're just not really, a huge fan of football or you don't really pay much attention to it, you probably know who number 1 and number 2 are. The only difference or the only issue would be what order is number 1 and number 2. Who's number 1, who's number 2. Truthfully, they could be 1A, 1B. Again, I don't want to go too far into that while we give Michael Gonzalez his respective time to be discussed in the final edition of the 5-part episode series ranking the top 15 players for the Cardinals. Why do I have Gonzalez over the other 3? Because I did mention that it was tough to really differentiate 3 through 6. I chose to put Gonzalez over the likes of Colin Lacey, Thor Griffith, and MJ Griffin, who we talked about in the last episode. I think why he's over those guys, 2 of them have not played at the Power 5 level. So Gonzalez having that ACC experience and having excelled at this level of competition gave him the edge for me. And the reason he got the nod over MJ Griffin is MJ is coming off of a serious injury. I do think he's going to bounce back really well. Case in point, he still is dealing with rehabbing that. So this is his first season or his first game action in, almost 2 years, December of 2022. So that's why Gonzalez is on here for me. The leadership that he's going to have, the production he's going to have in both pass pro and protecting, and blocking for the run. He's gotten the preseason recognition. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it is fairly significant. And the run grades. I mean, he's gotten some really, really good Pro Football Focus grades. Nonetheless, I understand that people will look at this and say, well, an interior offensive lineman's a top 3 player on this team. That's not inherently bad unless you just don't have other players to back him up. This isn't a situation of, he's got to be on there because nobody else is. No, this is he beat out some really, really talented players. Louisville is more talented than they were last season. Will that materialize into the same levels of success. For that to happen, Michael Gonzalez has to be the leader of the offensive line. Louisville did something that I didn't think they were going to do. They brought back one of the best cornerbacks in the country, and in my opinion, the best cornerback in the ACC. He lands at number 2. We'll discuss on the next episode of Locked On Louisville. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports probably more than I should have, but we're just not going to have that conversation at the moment. Middle of August, not much going on. The sports have stopped sporting like I want them to. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. These same game parlays on FanDuel.com for Major League Baseball have won me a good chunk of change over the past couple months, and I'm going to ride that high until the end of the season. Find your own wins. Make the most out of the end of your summer. Head over to FanDuel.com. FanDuel remains the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Also want to take this time to tell you about our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Home Field is a premium collegiate apparel brand based out of Indianapolis, but has taken the college apparel world by storm. I first found out about Home Field in 2023, right when they were just initially getting started. They sent me a complimentary Louisville baseball 3/4 shirt, which I still wear to this day, and now they are my go-to for all Louisville apparel. They're a premium collegiate apparel brand, like I mentioned, that have a wide range of available colleges, and thankfully that includes your Louisville Cardinals. They have an agreement in place with the Cardinals to sell their gear at the campus store. Right now, they have a can't-miss kickoff 2024 special that has a box featuring some very key items, including 3 never-before-seen items for your school that are not available anywhere else, curated so fans can have new gear to wear all summer long. You can be a VIP member and get a koozie, a hat, the Platinum Pass that gives you 20% off to the releases, and much, much more. Go to homefieldapparel.com and look at all the wide selection of colleges available. It's extremely convenient for online shopping. It allows you to browse through the various designs and find the perfect college football gear. It's very important to get ready for this upcoming season. Just go to homefieldapparel.com to find all of the best Louisville Cardinals gear. homefieldapparel.com. And Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On College Football Podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. As I mentioned right before the break, Louisville returns one of the best cornerbacks in the country, in my opinion, the best in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Number 2, very, very obvious, Quincy Riley. Quincy Riley came to Louisville right ahead of the 2022 season and was immediately very, very good. Spent 3 years at Middle Tennessee State, one of the best ball hawks in the country in 2021. 2022, it took him a while for Scott Satterfield to play him, but when he did, was one of the best defensive backs on the team, along with MJ Griffin, had 3 interceptions in 22. In 2023, he solidified himself as an absolute shutdown cornerback 1. Career high 45 tackles, had 7 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, and when I break down the advanced statistics, it's going to make things look even more impressive. Riley allowed a 36% completion percentage, and quarterbacks, when throwing in his direction, only had a passer rating of 37.2. That's good for an 85.3 coverage grade from Pro Football Focus. One of the best man coverage cornerbacks, that'd be kind of weird, cornerbacks in the country. And returning cornerbacks-wise, he is second in returning quarterbacks and wins above average in terms of impact on this team. He is on the Bednarik Award watch list, along with the player at number 1. And Quincy Riley, his impact is going to be felt from the very first game to the very end of the season. I truthfully did not think he was going to return. When he announced that he was coming back, I had to immediately change the way that I looked at this defense, because when you have a shutdown cornerback 1 on your team, joined with what you did in the portal, bringing some key players back, and a guy, one of the best defense players in the country. Again, I feel like I'm just beating around the bush, but you know who number 1 is. Quincy Riley is one of the best coverage cornerbacks in the country, one of the top coverage guys returning this season. I don't know what it is. Somebody needs to do a study on why the ACC just refuses, and I mean refuses, to give him any preseason love, any postseason love. He is consistently snubbed from every awards list. Quincy Riley's an honorable mention. Go back and watch him last season and tell me he's an honorable mention. Tell me you don't watch Louisville without telling me you don't watch Louisville. I get we're a little biased as Louisville fans. Come on, y'all. Be for real. Quincy Riley is the best cornerback in the conference. And with him improving as a run defender is just more icing on the cake. Coach Ellis of the defensive backs at Louisville mentioned that he's even carrying himself differently this offseason. He's taken up a more professional approach. Money year, if I've ever seen one for a player. Is he going to be a first-round draft pick? I mean, the NFL likes to prioritize age, so I'm not necessarily sure if that's going to be the case. Is he going to be, for me, outside of Jair Alexander, Quincy Riley is the best cornerback that I have seen play at Louisville. I started being a fan of the Cardinals back in 2024. He is the best cornerback that I've seen at Louisville. And that's saying a lot. So the production's going to be there. I think the interceptions might not be, because teams aren't really going to throw his way. But the tackles will be close to where they were. You're going to see similar amount of pass deflections, but it's not the production that's going to jump up off the page here. It's going to be the eye test. It's going to be the impact. What's going to happen with quarterbacks throw his way? He's going to shut down a portion of the field, and that impact is going to be had, or is going to be seen by the rest of the defensive unit. So you have the impact there. You have the production. You've got the talent. He's uber talented. And he's the best player at the position in the conference, in my opinion. So having a player that's the best, or one of the best, depending on how you look at it, not having him high up the list is going to be challenging. Like Quincy Riley, automatically, it didn't even matter who they brought in via the portal. I just didn't think that there was a way you could dethrone him out of the top 2 because of just how good he is. He was one of the top cornerbacks last year, a guy that analytics loved. But for some reason, the ACC just turned their head whenever it came to giving. It's like that, that Uno meme where it's like, do this or draw 25. ACC's like, give Quincy Riley credit or draw 25, and the ACC sitting there holding 25 cards, struggling, wondering which card to play. It's actually quite ridiculous. But I'm not going to go too much on a tangent, because we do have to identify who number 1 is on this list. You should already know who it is. Regardless, we're going to tell you Louisville returned to one of the best defensive players in the country, and it changed the entire outlook of the Cardinals defense. More on that coming up on the next segment of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Today's episode of the show also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Ever since I downloaded the Game Time app, look, it changed the game. The features available are absolutely convenient as it gets. You get flash deals, which means that you can save even more with the exclusive in-app deals on select seats. There's the all-in pricing, which is a feature that you have to toggle, but when you do, it shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view from any seat in the app before you buy, and there's the lowest price guarantee. So what that means is if you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The final segment of this fairly lengthy 5-episode series ranking the top 15 players for the Louisville Cardinals ahead of the 2024 college football season. It was not an easy list to compile, but number 1 and number 2 were pretty much automatics. I immediately wrote them down with much thought. You could consider them 1A, 1B, and I would not be disappointed nor disagreeing with you much at all. Quincy Riley's number 2. Number 1 is edge rusher Ashton Gillotte. Gillotte was a first-team All-ACC member last year, was the runner-up for the ACC Defensive Player of the Year trophy, and a second-team All-American voted on by multiple publications. He had an absolute fantastic season, as he did the year before that. In the past 3 years, he's gotten better each and every season. I mentioned before the year that I expected his tackle numbers to increase. I expected him to force a fumble or two and to get close to that double-digit sack number. For reference, 2022, he had career highs in tackles. In 22, he had a pass deflection. He had 6 sacks, which was a career high as well. And he blew those numbers out of the water. Doubled the tackles number in 2023 at 45. Almost doubled the sacks number. He had 11. That was the number 1 sack leader in the ACC, number 8 in the country, and ranked 9th in Louisville's single-season sack leaders. To the point now where he's number 10 in program history all-time sacks. He had 40 quarterback hurries, which was 5th nationally. And you just saw that he was a menace, a force to be reckoned with immediately. To the point now where he is being voted on, I mentioned in the Michael Gonzalez segment, he was the other preseason All-ACC selection. He has been tabbed as a possible All-American, first team and second team. And I've also seen him get some love in the first round of certain NFL mock drafts for 2025. If Louisville wants to maximize their success in 2024, Ashton Gillotte has to be the Ashton Gillotte that we know and more. He's gotten better each and every season. I've sort of compared his trajectory with that of Kentucky first-round draft pick Josh Allen, or Josh Allen's Hines now, or Josh Allen Hines, I think it's, or Hines Allen Hines. I know he's changed his last name to include Hines. But Josh was a projected first-round pick, decided to come back for his senior season and completely changed the dynamic of that defense. Even in areas where they struggled, it was masked over by having just an All-American pass rusher on the line. Allen was a top 6 pick in the draft. Will Ashton Gillotte play into that level? I'm not so sure. I hope so, but I do think that he's going to be an All-American this season, first team. I do think that he's going to be a first-round draft pick, and that is some pretty high predictions. But when you look at what he's done every season, he's gotten better and better in different aspects of the game. He's got another season in this particular scheme that has changed a little bit from Scott Satterfield over to Jeff Brom and Ron English and Mark Hagan's defense. Now, you can't discount another year in the college offseason. You can't discount a level of continuity between having a new coach in 23 to having him for his second season. The production's going to be there. Is he going to get 11 sacks? I think that he will at least tie that number because early on in the year, those sack numbers really weren't materializing. The quarterback hurries were, but he wasn't really getting home. He's going to get home this season. I think with Thor Griffith on the interior of that defensive line, you create so much opportunity for him on the outside, and you need some other players at the Leo to step up. Miles Jernigan, Tramel Logan, Adonijah Green, the list goes on. The production's going to be there. The impact, I mean, outside of quarterback, you can make a case for edge being the most important position. Like a star edge is one of the most valuable players to have outside of QB1. Like QB1's number one. And then you have, I think, left tackle and a star edge as being like the next most valuable players on a defense or on the team in general. I'm sorry. So Gillotte is number one on this list. It really wasn't that much of a discussion. You return the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. It is a very real possibility that Gillotte not only wins Defensive Player of the Year, but he makes, well, he would by default make first team all ACC. First team all ACC, AC Defensive Player of the Year, and also first team All-American by multiple publications. That is not out of the realm of possibility. Is he going to have an Elvis Dumerville type season? That's to be determined, but he's going to be fantastic. Going to be absolutely fantastic, and we are so blessed to not only how wild is it that we all thought before the season that Gillotte and Riley were gone, and you get both of them back. That's so nuts, man. That's so incredible. But nonetheless, that is wrapping up the 15 or the top 15 player rankings for the Louisville Cardinals ahead of the college football season. I do want to take the remainder of this show to sort of give you an update on what's to come because the season here on Saturday, tomorrow, we're 2 weeks away, y'all. We're 14 days away from the kickoff against Austin Peay at noon at Cardinal Stadium. What does the rest of the month look like from a content perspective? Well, we still have one more series. That is the 3-part schedule breakdown where we will break down all 12 games, 4 games at a time, and we'll give our season predictions for those games. So that will take up a portion of what we're going to talk about. We'll give a little bit of a brief preview for Austin Peay. That's a game that Louisville is going to be favored to win by quite a lot. So there won't be much preview talk as much as we've had previews for the past couple of seasons where you open up against Mississippi, you open up against Syracuse, you open up against Georgia Tech. So we'll preview more so the early games. We'll talk about some other stuff we'll discuss, and we'll just sort of play it by ear. I know that there's going to be some basketball recruiting that we'll dive into, but that is going to wrap up this final edition of the Player Rankings episode series. Everyone have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here